This is a level of sadism and cruelty you rarely see, even in the murder industry.
That poor man suffered terribly.
A cold-blooded attack in broad daylight.
He looked like a candle that had melted.
Everybody was incredulous that something like this could happen in good old Lauderdale by the Sea.
Who douses somebody with sulfuric acid?
A victim adored by almost everyone.
Somebody wanted to send him a very severe message.
He's wanted by the FBI.
Listen, I was in his face, and he just denied it and denied it and denied it.
The truth will be revealed.
Everybody wanted to save his own skin, and they often say it's a race to the courthouse. Whoever gets there first gets the best deal.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. South Florida is a magnet for sun seekers and retirees who want to spend their golden years on golden beaches. And among the most popular is the tiny enclave of Lauderdale by the Sea.
It is a throwback, probably 20, 25 years from the rest of the area of the beach. It has older motels, it's accessible to people who maybe aren't rich, and it has a real sort of homey feel to it.
A lot of people who live in the Northeast or Canada and other places, they come here on vacation, they fall in love with the place, and they move back. And we just tend to get an eclectic collection of people.
In Lauderdale by the Sea, you don't hear about a lot of violent crime. It would be just mainly property crimes, maybe some burglaries.
For the town to have a homicide is very, very uncommon.
But on Sunday, July 9th, 2000, Lauderdale by the Sea's peace and tranquility is rocked by a sinister act of violence.
It's a bright, sunny day. It's, you know, the kind of afternoon where people are getting their errands done or they're getting ready for the week ahead. So it was about 3:20 in the afternoon. The victim was in the supermarket parking lot. He's loading groceries into the trunk of his car, and a man runs up to him and then throws a cooler full of liquid all over the victim, and then runs away. The victim is in extreme pain. He is yelling. He is in extreme distress.
He ran back into the grocery store. They tried rinsing him with water.
His body was covered in burns. He looked like a candle that had melted.
911, do you need police, fire, medical rescue?
Yes, we need the fire department here.
Yeah, what's wrong there?
We have a guy that's here that has acid all over him and he's bleeding.
Acid?
Mm-hmm.
He is flown to a burn center in Miami. He's placed into a medically induced coma, and he never comes to again.
The victim is 63-year-old Rudy Huda, a retired Air Force captain who managed an oceanside resort in the town.
It was just so bizarre to think that somebody in Rudy Huda's life had a grudge against him. He was well-liked. He was known for being friendly to everybody.
He was known as a very conscientious worker. He was always out pottering around, cleaning things up, talking to the guests. He had a little dog that was well known called Shatsy, and they used to walk around the area. People knew them. The people who mourned him must have been devastated knowing how horrible this crime was.
Tasked with solving Rudy's vicious murder is veteran homicide detective Eli Tomasevich.
Mr. Huda was doused with sulfuric acid. The acid, once it starts eating through your body, through your skin, it starts attacking your organs. I worked many homicides, and I've been witness to many autopsies. This was one of the worst. That poor man had probably suffered terribly.
As reporters, we're accustomed to murders that involve guns and knives and beatings and, fights that get out of control, but acid takes it to a whole different level.
Regardless of motive, this is a level of sadism and cruelty that fortunately you rarely see, even in the murder industry, and even in South Florida.
It was such a horrible murder that I was determined we were going to find whoever did this, at least to find out why.
To catch the killer, Detective Tomasevich will need to piece together the final 24 hours of Rudy's life.
Speaking with his wife was just a normal day. He was working around the complex, and I think it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon when his wife sent him out to do some shopping. We got surveillance videos from the grocery store, which really didn't help much because most of the videos were from the inside of the store. And that was when Mr. Huda ran into the bathroom and was dousing himself with water. So as far as the suspect themselves, we really didn't have any video on them. I spoke to 2 eyewitnesses. They said that around 3 p.m., Mr. Huda went into the supermarket to do his shopping. When he came out, it was around 3:22. He went to put his groceries into the car, and that's when a white pickup truck came along. A white male came out with a cooler. The witness said it was an igloo cooler, like they use on construction sites. This guy came up and called Mr. Huda's name. So he would turn around and then doused him with the acid. One of the witnesses, she gave us a pretty good description. White male, he was in his 30s. He was 6'2". He had no shirt on, but he had white pants. They were like painter's pants. There was another person with him who was driving the pickup truck, but nobody could describe the driver, because he was in the vehicle. Nobody really got a look at him.
Someone is driven to the scene, called out the victim's name, attacked the victim and only the victim, and then fled the scene. This speaks to this whole thing being very organized, very premeditated. On top of that, not only is it organized and premeditated, the weapon used reflects a level of personal motivation the way few other targeted attacks do.
But what would motivate such a barbaric attack on a man as well-liked as Rudy?
I thought maybe he might have been cheating because it was just the type of a crime that whoever the suspect was wanted to cause pain. It wasn't like, you just want to kill somebody. So we started looking at whether he had a girlfriend, there was a husband someplace that was angry or something like that. But according to Edith Huda, the wife, she had a perfect marriage. They were very happy together. So we went on to other things.
As Detective Tomasevich scours Rudy's background, he discovers that Rudy did have one potentially dangerous vice.
Mrs. Huda told us the only problem that they had was that he would go to the racetrack and he would spend money at the racetrack. And I guess he tried to hide whatever he was spending. So when she told us about that, naturally, we figured maybe he was borrowing money from organized crime. Maybe he owed bookmakers, money from his betting. Because somebody out there wanted to send him a very severe message.
Rudy Huda, a resort manager, was the victim of a fatal acid attack. To find his killer, investigators look into Rudy's gambling habit as a possible lead.
People speculated that perhaps organized crime was involved because the crime was so horrific and so targeted. It was something that was targeted towards a very specific individual. It didn't seem like maybe this was going to be randomly happening to other people.
It's incredibly difficult to find the killer if it's a professional job. So these are weird cases because investigators, I mean, they're clearly looking for the person who's doing the killing, but that person is not connected by motive. They're connected by some form of money because it's a contract killing, and that can be very difficult for investigators to put the pieces together.
We spoke to a few bookmakers in the area that we knew existed. Nobody really knew Mr. Huda. You know, nobody really admitted to seeing him at the racetrack. Friends said, yeah, he'd like to go to the racetrack, but they didn't know of any involvement with any of those organized crime type of people.
Ruling out a link to organized crime, the investigation shifts to the resort Rudy managed and the possibility that someone connected to his job had something to do with his murder.
In the field of victimology, one of the things you always look at is the victim's background. Who they knew, where they've lived, their lifestyle, but most importantly, their occupation. So that is where you're most likely to encounter your adversaries, where you're most likely to build relationships and also make enemies.
Everybody thought he was a really, really nice guy. I mean, he was pretty good to the people that worked at the hotel. Never found anybody that had a harsh word about him.
One of the resort's longtime employees does reveal that there had previously been acts of vandalism on the property.
At one point, latex paint was thrown into the swimming pool at the hotel. Motor engine oil was thrown into the pool, and obviously that caused a great deal of damage, thousands of dollars worth of damage. At another point, someone put some kind of chemical on the bushes that had been planted. So there was a lot of bad feeling and a lot of kind of suspicion about what was going on.
We got copies of the police report, and we also got copies of the video because Mr. Huda gave the videos to the police department at the time. So we actually viewed the videos, and it was people that were coming over the fence and, you know, outsiders. It wasn't people that lived there. But unfortunately, you couldn't identify anybody.
The reports of vandalism are a significant lead that investigators pursue further.
The police met with and talked to people from the Lauderdale-by-the-Sea Board of Commissioners, and they were the first ones who indicated to the police that there was some animosity going on between the apartments across the street and Mr. Huda's resort pertaining to access to the beach and visibility to the beach.
When we found out that there was problems back and forth, we went back to speak with Mrs. Huda. I said, is there anybody that you can think of that would have hard feelings towards your husband? She says, the only thing I can think of is that condominium across the street. She says they used to argue over the fact that Mr. Huda put up shrubs and you couldn't see the ocean or the beach area.
There had traditionally been some kind of agreement between the owners of both sides that they could all have access to each other's properties. But apparently, over time, some bad feeling developed between the properties. And Rudy apparently had gotten upset about some things that were going on, and he had put up some kind of fencing, planted some hedges, and some of the people who lived in the condos across the street felt they were losing access to the beach. They had to walk farther to actually get onto the beach. So there was some bad feeling.
But I mean, who goes out and douses somebody with sulfuric acid? All because of an argument over access to the beach.
To find out who was upset with Rudy's landscaping and maintenance, police reach out to the president of the condominium board across the street, Walter Dendy.
Walter Dendy is this gentleman who at the time was in his 60s, and he ran the condos that were across the street.
You know, whatever he said, they did. He was like the big cheese in that condominium.
He's a respected member of the community. He was involved in civic life in the town. So, you know, he was well known in the area.
He seemed concerned about Mr. Huda, and he seemed like a nice guy. I asked him about the feud going on with Mr. Huda, and he says, no, not really. He says, you know, we've had a couple of crosswords with each other, but nothing serious. And then he tells us the only people that were upset was one or two older people that lived in the building. They were senior citizens.
Investigators were able to confirm that Walter Dendy was actually at home at the time of the attack, and so were the seniors. Never mind the fact that crimes of this magnitude, that are this horrifically violent, tend to not be in the wheelhouse of most senior citizens. On top of that, consider the fact that witnesses also described a much younger, taller male as being the one responsible for throwing the acid.
Their initial canvass bringing up little for them to go on, investigators appear to have hit a roadblock in their search for information, leading to Rudy's attacker and a motive.
It's frustrating, but listen, I've worked so many murder cases, and we've had a lot of frustrating things go on. And you just keep plugging along. When these murder cases happen, you're out there sometimes for 2 days, 3 days before you ever see your house again. But if you don't keep going, you're not going to solve a lot of these cases. And we were going to solve this one way or the other.
Hoping someone out there knows something about Rudy's murder, investigators reach out to the public.
In any investigation like this, where you're the police and you're not completely sure of the story that you have, it's always advantageous to release some information to the public, because you're likely to find people who will come forward and fill in some of those gaps.
We started to put out a lot of media coverage as far as trying to get people to call in with any information. And we started getting a lot of tips coming in.
Among the tips they receive, one in particular is promising.
We finally got a tip that said that the person that was involved with this used to hang out at a bicycle shop in Fort Lauderdale. So we went down to the bicycle shop. We spoke to the worker there, John Alexander. He really didn't want to give up much information.
But then Detective Tomasevich makes an important discovery.
The bike shop employee owned a white pickup truck. When detectives realized this, they became very interested because the person who had attacked Mr. Huda had escaped in a white pickup truck. This was a very good lead for the detectives, but there was a problem because the bike shop employee didn't match the description of the person who actually carried out the attack, but he could have been the driver of the truck.
Believing he could be the getaway driver in Rudy's murder, investigators questioned John, the bike shop employee, about his whereabouts the day of the fatal attack.
The investigators were starting to think that this might be the best lead they'd had in the investigation so far. But when the detectives go and talk to this gentleman who worked at the bike shop, he tells them that he was working at the bike store the whole day when Mr. Huda was attacked.
When we looked into it, John had an alibi. It actually panned out. We were convinced that he was not the driver.
But John's still the owner of the white truck that was used that Sunday. And Detective Tomasevich questions him about whether he could have lent it to someone else.
At first, he denied that he lent his truck to anyone. We explained to him that this was a murder case and that if he insisted upon holding back information, he was going to be charged as an accessory because his truck was the truck that was used to commit this crime.
John finally admits to lending his truck to a friend in early July, the day Rudy was killed.
John was friends with Leaky. John said he was a massage therapist, and he had a card from Leaky that had his massage therapist license on it. Then he gave us some information about a girlfriend that he had. He gave us the name of her condo where she lived. So we went to speak with her.
But when investigators arrive at the home of Leaky's girlfriend, Effie, they make a surprising discovery.
The detectives thought it was a little odd because she was considerably older than the suspect that they were looking at. Seemed like a little bit of an unusual relationship.
In speaking to this lady, the detectives learned that she was a vulnerable person, and he took advantage of that to pay her attention and to ingratiate himself into her life and into her home.
Effie tells us, he's just a nice guy. He takes care of me. He helps me with driving her places and doing things for her.
Effie told the cops that he had gone off. She wasn't really quite sure where he was. He had disappeared pretty recently. And the detectives certainly seemed to think it was a red flag.
When I spoke to her, the last time she had seen him was probably like a week or 2 weeks before. But she was also holding back on information. She was making it, oh, he's just a friend, I don't know too much about him. And then we started realizing there was more involved with her than she was admitting.
Detective Tomasevich puts Effie on the back burner for now to take a different tack, following up on Luke Leaky through his business card.
We checked with the state of Florida. The license number on that card was fictitious. They had no record of anybody being licensed with that number. So all we knew was that he's a liar.
This Luke Leaky was sort of a shadowy character that sort of existed nowhere and everywhere in Lauderdale by the Sea.
Then we started looking into his background with his name.
Detective Tomasevich finds an address for Luke Leaky in Orlando, Florida, and his first real suspect seems to be within grasp.
They tracked this guy down to Orlando, thinking that this was the person they were looking for, but when they knock on the guy's door, he tells them, I've been a victim of identity theft, and this guy has been using my name. I've lost money over this. I've just been put through a whole nightmare.
That poor guy had all kinds of problems financially. He had problems with his mortgage. He had problems with his house because the other Luke Leaky was making all kinds of loans and credit cards and everything else.
The guy was telling them the truth, that he had been victimized.
They were able to get a photograph of this Luke Leaky person, and when they went back to show it to the people who had seen the assailant throw the acid, that was not the person they were able to identify. From that, they were very much able to remove the real Luke Leaky as the possible assailant.
When investigators lean on Effie for more information about her boyfriend, she coughs up a description of a 40-something guy, 5'11", with a lean build.
He wasn't a 35-year-old and 6'2". He didn't fit the description of the person that threw the acid.
When the description of the mystery man doesn't square with Luke Leaky, we have to then question what role did he have. For instance, could he have been the getaway driver?
From Effie, they found out that the person posing as Luke Leaky had done some work for a motel down the street.
Detective Tomasevich meets the owner of the motel, hoping he'll have information leading to the mystery con man claiming to be Luke Leaky.
The manager hired Luke Leaky to take care of the pool and do the maintenance around there, but that's all he knew about him.
As the investigation appears to be hitting another wall, Detective Tomasevich makes a coincidental observation.
The owner's son, Brett, generally resembled the description of what the assailant looked like, and that led the police to believe that Brett was involved somehow, that he was the person who threw the acid.
He fit the description to a T. He was in his 30s, 6'2", same type of, physical build. So we take his photograph and we put it into a photographic lineup. Now we have two witnesses. One said he wasn't sure. He says he thinks that it was him, but didn't give us a definite ID. The girl who saw the incident picks him out as the suspect. So we arrest Brett. We take him in, bring him down to the jail. We interviewed him, I don't know how many hours.
They pressed him really hard. One of the detectives said, listen, I was in his face asking if he was Rudy's assailant. And he just denied it and denied it and denied it.
His only alibi was that he was working at the hotel. But, you know, we couldn't confirm it at the time.
After repeatedly denying any involvement in Rudy's murder, detectives escalate Brett's interrogation.
Very often, the police will say, well, would you take a polygraph test? And if the person will not, that is just something else to give them a suspicion that maybe this person has something to hide. But in this case, Brett affirmatively wanted to take a polygraph.
He says, I didn't do this, I wasn't involved, I'll take a polygraph. And as soon as he said that, we said, okay. You know, when somebody offers to take a polygraph, we go right along with it.
But even under the pressure of a polygraph, Brett continues to stick to his story.
What made this very shocking was that he still just denied it and denied it and denied it, and then he didn't pass.
Detective Tomasevich has zeroed in on Brett Nider, the son of a motel owner, as the prime suspect in Rudy's murder. He matches the description of the man who threw the acid, and he's failed a polygraph.
By this time, we go into the live lineup, and as we're doing the live lineup, I see the witness, the female, she picks a Brett out of the lineup, but she's very tentative. She says, yeah, that's him. And then she walks out of the room. So I follow her, and I said, so the person that you picked, are you sure that he's the person that you saw at this, you know, when this crime was committed? She says, no, I don't think it's him.
Eyewitness testimony is sometimes not very reliable. We know that you need to build a stronger case because people think that they actually do see things that maybe have not occurred or remember details that are in fact not the case. So caution is warranted. But I think this case is just so unfathomable, so incredulous that, you know, sometimes mistakes get made or we're forced to really re-examine our evidence and challenge our own assumptions, or else we can quickly come to conclusions that aren't founded.
Despite the polygraph results, the eyewitness's inability to make a positive in-person ID of Rudy's attacker means investigators have to let Brett go.
As a police officer, as a detective, the last thing I would ever want to do is lock somebody up that doesn't deserve to be arrested. It's a horror. To me, that would be the worst scenario. To have no problem locking up a guilty person, but never want to lock somebody up that didn't do the crime.
There was a lot of pressure on the detectives to solve the case. So there was certainly great public interest in making sure that whoever did this was brought to justice, but nobody wanted a rush to justice. They wanted to be sure that they got the right people and that the right people went to prison for what they had done.
Determined to find justice for Rudy, Detective Tomasevich knows the key to cracking the case lies in finding the man posing as Luke Leaky. Looking for answers, he hauls John, the bike shop employee, in for questioning.
Basically, we had to threaten him that he was going to go to jail because we knew that it was his truck. You know, he admitted that he loaned his truck to Luke Leaky, but he still gave us a very hard time as far as giving us information. So we actually locked him up as an accessory. And that's when he started to realize that he had to come clean with us.
These situations are always like playing poker with somebody, and you've got to give police the leeway to be a little bit forceful, play their hand to see what they're going to get. And in this case, it turned out to be a good hand for them. John was forthcoming with more information.
And then he tells us that he found clothing. He described the painter pants, and he said that it looked like something had eaten through the material, which was the acid. Then he also found the igloo cooler.
But John has thrown away all the physical evidence he found.
I think he realized that he made a mistake, And I think he just wanted to get away from it as far as he could.
John does tell detectives that the man who is presenting himself as Luke Leaky has a car at his girlfriend Effie's place.
We spoke to the security there, and they knew he was not a resident there, but he had his car down in the garage. So security takes us to the car down in the garage, and we have the forensic unit come down, and they lifted prints off of the outside of the car. The prints came back to Emilio Sheriff-Arden.
He has a history of being arrested. He's wanted by the FBI. He was involved in some kind of attempt to break someone out of a jail in the past. So the investigators are very interested when they start to figure out that this guy is linked into all of this somehow.
Investigators are confident that the man posing as Luke Leaky is actually Emilio Sheriff-Arden. Now they just have to find him.
The detectives went back to Effie, and she identified him as the person she knew as Luke Leaky. But she was somewhat reluctant to believe that this person in her life could be a criminal. There was still some element of her trying to protect him.
We sat and explained to her all the information that we had, all the people that he's hurt. She finally realized that this was not a person that she wanted to, defend. And then she finally started telling us all the information that we needed to know. She gave us his cell phone number, and we got a warrant for that number so we could track it. And we tracked that cell phone right across the United States. We knew exactly where Emilio Sheriff-Arden was at certain times. And then it finally stopped in Palm Springs, California. So we got on the phone, called the Palm Springs Police Department, sent them flyers with his, photo and other information. And we said, he's somewhere in your city. And Palm Springs put it on the local news there.
Investigators catch a break when the people Emilio Sheriff-Arden is staying with see the news report.
When these two guys saw it, they said, that's the guy that's staying with us. They picked up the phone and called Palm Springs Police. When Palm Springs Police Department got there, they must have surrounded the place because it was a homicide investigation. Somebody goes to the front door and they put somebody at the back door, just in case that person tries to escape. Emilio ran out the back and he was caught when he was running out of the back door.
With Emilio Sheriff-Arden in custody, Detective Tomasevich interrogates him about Rudy's murder.
He was a little cocky in the beginning, and I said to him, I says, Emilio, you don't have to say a word. You have the right to remain silent. They gave him his Miranda rights. I said, just listen to what I have to tell you.
Investigators have Emilio's cell phone records, which place him making a call in the area of the supermarket at 3:24 p.m., around the time of Rudy's attack.
And I told him all about the information, all about the evidence, and he didn't say a word. He just sat there listening and looking at me. And he said, wow, you guys are good. He says, you did a good job. He says, okay, I'll tell you the truth.
Detective Tomasevich has Emilio Sheriff-Arden in his crosshairs and is hoping to learn the truth about Rudy's murder.
Emilio was trying to save his own skin, and he was in other trouble, so he was looking at possibly being convicted of other crimes. So it seemed like he was trying to get the best deal for himself. And they often say it's a race to the courthouse. Whoever gets there first and volunteers the most information gets the best deal.
Emilio tells Detective Tomasevich he was just the getaway driver and that Rudy's attacker is Emilio's friend, Neil Bross.
Neil was a painter, and he used to wear white painter's outfit. Just like the guy that was in the parking lot who doused Mr. Huda with sulfuric acid.
Mr. Sheriff-Arden told him that he was asked by somebody to do this, and that he agreed to be the getaway driver, and he enlisted his friend, Neil Bross, to actually throw the acid.
Investigators have two suspects with the means and opportunity, but they're still without a motive for why Neil Bross and Emilio Sheriff Varden would want to conspire to murder Rudy.
Their motive seemed to be to make money. Neil thought he was going to make $200,000 with a bonus thrown in if he could get the acid into the eyes of the victim. And Emilio thought he was going to make about $20,000 to set up the deal and be the getaway driver.
And then, as it turns out, that's when Emilio Sheriff Varden named the mastermind of the entire crime.
Emilio said that the mastermind behind this whole barbaric plan was Walter Dendy, the president of the local condo association.
Walter and Rudy had been at loggerheads over Rudy's decision to restrict access to the beach path and to plant a row of hedges that obstructed Walter's condo complex's ocean view.
I was surprised. We did a background check on Walter Dendy when we originally spoke with him. Man's never been in trouble, worked his whole life, retired. It was hard to believe that a man like him would be involved with, an incident like this.
What would push a law-abiding senior citizen who is an upstanding member of the community to orchestrate such a vicious attack in response to a property feud?
Walter's somebody who is sensitive to perceived slights and affronts. He wants to regain the beach access because it makes him look good in the eyes of the people he represents as the condo association. If he can't provide that, it means people at this condo need to walk the same access as the rest of the public. And this is something that, if you're a narcissistic individual, would be really awful and off-putting towards you. But the more he struggles to solve this problem, it's almost like this narcissistic wound continues to fester to the point that he just gets so aggrieved, he's going to resort to a plan to take care of Rudy or send him a message for good.
Emilio tells Detective Tomasevich that Walter Dendy found out he was on the run using a false name and leveraged this information to blackmail Emilio into participating in the feud.
Walter Dendy wanted to cause enough damage where Mr. Huda would lose his job. So this way they wouldn't be arguing over bushes and the lock on the gate and all that. Walter Dendy hired Emilio to throw the oil into the pool. Walter Dendy hired him to kill the bushes after the bushes were put in place. And then he said that Walter Dendy wanted to hire him to send Mr. Huda a very severe message with the acid.
Emilio Sheriff Varden tells detectives he enlisted Neil Bross to throw the acid and that Walter Dendy promised to pay them both for the attack. But Sheriff Varden's also a con man, and Detective Tomasevich needs more than hearsay to prove his case.
When the police confront Emilio, he tells them he has proof about his story. He says he and Walter actually went to the industrial supply store together on July 7th and bought the sulfuric acid together.
A woman sold a barrel of sulfuric acid to two gentlemen matching the description of Emilio Sheriff Varden and Walter Dendy. She was able to give the descriptions, and then she was able to pick them out of photographic lineups. Getting the sulfuric acid was a big deal because that was clear evidence that Mr. Dendy was involved.
With Emilio Sheriff Varden's cooperation, investigators are able to put together the final 24 hours of Rudy Huda's life.
The day when Mr. Huda was attacked, all three gentlemen, Mr. Dendy, Mr. Sheriff Varden, and Mr. Bross, got together. They all hung out at the condo, and they kind of staked out Mr. Huda. They watched to see what he was doing. They kind of wanted to get him, apparently, away from the hotel resort. So they spent quite a few hours just hanging out, stalking him.
At 3 p.m., when Rudy went out to the supermarket, Emilio and Neil tailed him in the white truck.
They kept in contact with Mr. Dendy up until the point where they got to the supermarket, and then there was a space in time where there were no phone calls.
Mr. Huda went into the local supermarket to pick up some groceries, and when he came out, Neil Bross runs up to him, yells his name out. Hey, Rudy! And when Rudy turned around, he threw this gallon-sized cooler full of acid all over him.
And that's when Neil Bross got back into the truck and left with Emilio Scherfarden driving the white pickup truck at 3:24. And as far as we can determine, that's when phone calls were made from Emilio Scherfarden to Walter Dendy saying that the Eagle has landed, which meant that their job was completed.
It doesn't get much more horrible than an acid-throwing attack that ends up with someone being burned.
How does Walter go from wanting access to the beach to being this planned, cold, calculated mastermind of this brutal attack? If you trace back the offense far enough, you'll see that this person was angry, then they were ruminating to the point of just brooding, so it becomes all-consuming. I think there's certain people who are predisposed to angry rumination. And the more you think about that, the more you visualize the revenge you're gonna enact, the more that's likely that something aggressive or violent is gonna occur. And I think that's likely what happened in Walter's case.
On February 26, 2003, Walter Dendy is convicted of second-degree murder. Emilio Scherfarden is also convicted of second-degree murder. Neil Bross is convicted of murder in the third degree.
What has stuck with me probably the most is the evil in Walter Dendy. There was just nothing about him that you would find likable or redeeming. I have seen people who lack the empathy gene, meaning that they really don't care what they do. I have seen people who have acted out of passion, but something so cold and calculated, I don't think I've ever seen it before.
I always thought it was one of my worst cases. I mean, I've had bad cases. This stands out. Everybody got what they deserved, especially Walter Dendy. He was the worst. He was the one that contracted the whole situation. He was the one that caused the whole thing.
I think the thing that really sticks out about this case is just how petty disputes can blow out of proportion, and just how tragic it all is. Rudy suffered terribly. His wife suffered terribly. She didn't get to say goodbye to him. His children were not able to say goodbye. And for the people who know that their loved one died in such horrible and painful circumstances, you hope they get to go on with their lives, but I don't know that anybody ever gets to close these things out.